있는 원동력이기도 했고요. 저는 옛날의 기 형태들을 많이 참고하는 편인 것 같고요. 엄청나게 섬세한 기법들을 통해서 장식이 되어 있거든요. 저는 그런 장식들을 일부분씩 뜯어와서 그걸 제만의 방식대로 입체화시킵니다. 원래는 기라는 형태 자체가 실제로 사용하기 위해서 만들어졌잖아요. 그 공간을 저는 어떻게 하면 더 흥미롭게 보여줄 수 있을까? 그래서 제가 집중했던 부분이 창인데요. 건축에서도 창을 내부 외부를 잇는 통로? 매개체라고 많이들 이야기를 하잖아요. 저는 그 부분에서 영감을 받아서 그 창의 의미를 형태에 접목시키게 되었습니다. 그래서 요즘에는 이제 설치 작업도 많이 하는 것 같아요. 보통은 컵 같은 경우는 최종 완성까지 한 3주에서 4주 정도 소요가 되고요. 큰 작업 같은 경우는 한 3달까지도 걸리는 작업들도 있는 것 같아요. 저 같은 경우는 창같이 복잡한 패턴들을 함께 구성을 하다 보니까 정말 많이 갈라져요. 그래서 재벌 가마에 들어가 있을 때가 가장 긴장되는 순간인 것 같습니다. 사실 공간이라는 것이 볼 수도 없고 만질 수도 없는 어떠한 무형의 어떤 것이잖아요. 그거를 이제 빛이나 그림자나 무형의 어떤 요소들을 활용해서 같이 공감할 수 있는 작업을 하고 싶습니다.
The moment we wear it, our spirits lift. It helps us grow strong in body and in mind. As we wear it, we learn patience and respect. The belt system motivates students to strive harder and continue growing. This uniform shapes movement into grace and turns performance into something thrilling. Now, embraced around the world, Taekwondo shares our culture, philosophy, and values with pride and spirit. Though it may seem simple, this uniform holds your passion and your journey. It belongs to Taekwondo. Wear the extraordinary. Be with Taekwondo.
Parliamentary confirmation hearings for President Lee Jae-myung's first cabinet began on Monday, where the main opposition People Power Party argued the candidates are unfit for the roles, and the ruling Democratic Party backed the nominees, claiming they have no critical flaws. South Korea's trade minister says the country needs to make a strategic decision to find a landing zone in trade negotiations with the U.S., especially on agricultural items that the U.S. has demanded ease the regulations on. President Lee Jae-myung on Monday made time to sit down with soon-to-be civil servants, where he stressed a sense of duty and the importance of their public service. Tonight, we begin at the National Assembly. Confirmation hearings for President Lee Jae-myung's inaugural cabinet picks have kicked off, with the rival parties exchanging barbs over allegations involving the nominees. Our political correspondent, Shin Ha-young reports.
The Assembly confirmation hearings for President Lee Jae-myung's first cabinet got off to a rocky start, with tensions between the rival parties prompting some sessions to be delayed or suspended. National Assembly standing committees held 4 hearings on Monday, including those for the nominees for unification, science, oceans, and gender equality ministers. In South Korea, cabinet appointments are subject to parliamentary hearings but do not require legislative approval to take effect. While the main opposition People Power Party has vowed to examine the nominees' qualifications and moral integrity, claiming many are unfit and should step down, the ruling Democratic Party is backing the nominees, saying there are no critical flaws.
The Democratic Party will support the swift formation of the Lee Jae-myung administration's cabinet to ensure smooth governance and help stabilize state affairs.
The Lee Jae-myung administration's first cabinet lineup is completely flawed. None of the nominees are qualified. There are concerns that the hearings will just become a stage for baseless excuses and lies.
During the hearing for Unification Minister, nominee Chung Dong-young emphasized the need to improve relations between South and North Korea and restore peace on the Korean peninsula. He also said the minister's name should be reconsidered and discussed in the National Assembly, suggesting Ministry of the Korean Peninsula as one possible option. Chung has been stressing that renaming the ministry would help focus on making peace on the Korean Peninsula a top priority.
The Jae-myung administration needs a fresh start. As part of that, I believe it's time to consider changing the name of the Ministry of Unification.
Kang Sun-woo, a DP lawmaker nominated for Minister of Gender Equality, faced a rough start to her hearing amid intense debates over allegations of workplace abuse. With 18 nominees, including 16 ministerial candidates, scheduled to appear before the National Assembly over the course of the week, the political standoff between the rival parties is expected to continue. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
And President Lee Jae-myung is dispatching special envoys overseas to signal what he calls the return of democratic Korea and ensure his administration's policy agenda. The presidential office said Sunday that 4 delegations will visit the EU headquarters in Brussels, Belgium, as well as France, the UK, and India to strengthen South Korea's global ties. The EU team, led by former Environment Minister Yoon Yeol-jun, departed on Monday, with the other 3 teams leaving by Wednesday. Each delegation is made up of 3 members, mostly sitting lawmakers, headed by a chief envoy. They plan to meet with key officials and deliver personal letters from President Lee, underscoring South Korea's commitment to stronger ties. And additional envoys will be announced once schedules are finalized. The clock is winding down, with a U.S. tariff set to kick in on August 1st. South Korea's top trade negotiator faced the media earlier, saying that negotiations have made progress. And meanwhile, the U.S. says all this is not a bluff, while touting the measures so far. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
With less than 3 weeks to go before sweeping U.S. tariffs take effect, South Korea's Trade Minister Yeo Han-gu says negotiations with Washington have entered what he calls game time. Speaking to reporters on Monday at the Sejong government complex, Yeo stressed With under 20 days left, it's now a time for choices and decisions. He added that Seoul is ramping up give-and-take talks to find a landing zone, aiming to secure a broad package deal. Yo also touched on a sensitive topic for the country, the agricultural industry. Free trade talks, not just with the U.S., but with any other partners, he said, is always, quote, painful. This is expected as the U.S. is demanding the lowering of trade barriers. Yo, however, underscored the need for strategic judgment as despite the pain for the agro sector, Korea's industry as a whole has taken steps forward so far from trade deals made in the past. Meanwhile, Seoul continues to call out what it sees as unfair U.S. tariffs already hitting Korean exports, including 50% duties on steel and 25% on cars. But this all comes as U.S. President Donald Trump ramps up pressure on trade partners after he touted the effects of tariffs so far on Sunday local time.
We have tariffs pouring in at levels that we have never seen before, and they've only just started.
Over the past week, Trump sent letters to 25 countries notifying them of blanket tariff rates: Korea, Japan, and Malaysia at 25%, 30% for Mexico and the European Union, and 50% for Brazil, reportededly due to stalled negotiations.
These are countries that have been shut to us, but we've been open to them. In other words, they wouldn't let us do business there, but they would do business in our country. Not a fair deal.
In an interview with ABC News, White House Economic Chief Kevin Hassett warned the tariffs are not just a negotiating tactic. He said if Trump doesn't get the deals he considers strong enough, the tariffs will be real, adding that the president was dissatisfied with some of the sketches of deals his own team had put forward. 김도현, Arirang News.
In line with his focus on communication, President Lee Jae-myung delivered a lecture today to soon-to-be civil servants, sharing his views on the mindset they should bring to public service. Our top office correspondent Song Yoo-jin has more.
Ever since taking office, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has emphasized that every hour spent by a public official is equivalent to 52 million hours for every person in the country. That sense of responsibility was the main message in a lecture the president delivered to some 300 trainee civil servants on Monday at the National Human Resources Development Institute in Jincheon, Chungcheongbuk-do Province. He described public service as work that could, quote, determine the country's fate.
공직자들 손에는 정말로 많은 사람들의 삶이 달려 있습니다. 여러분들은 더군다나 대한민국 공직자의 중간 관리자, 중간 간부, 사무관으로부터 출발하지 않습니까? 여러분 손에 엄청난 권한이 주어져 있죠.
The president also pointed out what he called the biggest problem in Korea's bureaucracy, a culture where well-intentioned decisions are still punished if they fail, which he says makes civil servants passive.
공직자들이 처하는 어떤 선택 결정의 단계에는 가능성이 무궁무진하죠. 그리고 그 사후적으로 이 결정이 잘 됐다, 아니면 그보다 더 나은 결정이 있었다라고 책임을 묻고 평가하게 되면 이거는 공직자들한테 신이 되라고 요구하는 것이나 마찬가지예요. 근데 우린 신이 아니잖아요. 사람으로서 최선을 다하는 거죠.
After the lecture, President Lee took questions from the audience, offering advice based on his experience as Seongnam City Mayor and Gyeonggi-do Province Governor.
모두에게 칭찬받는 일은 없어요. 정책을 하기 때문에 조정할 권한을 우리가 국민에게 받았기 때문에 그걸 담보로 최대한 오해를 줄이고 이해시키고 조정하고 안 되면 마지막에는 칼로 자르듯이 권력을 행사해야죠.
This was the first time in 20 years that a sitting president lectured soon-to-be deputy directors the entry-level grade for those who passed the National Civil Service exam. Afterward, President Lee visited the site of the 2023 underpass flooding in Osong in the city of Cheongju for a safety inspection, reflecting his view that public officials must always prioritize people's safety. Tuesday marks exactly 2 years since the disaster, which killed 14 people. 송유진, Arirang News.
It's not just K-pop or Korean food that have been at high demand globally. So are vehicles used here in the country. Then, what are the drivers behind South Korea's record-breaking used car exports? Park Jun-an tells us.
What some in Korea see as outdated or no longer needed can become a brand new start on the other side of the world, such as used cars. South Korea's used car export market is gaining momentum, with shipments this year projected to exceed 10 trillion won, approximately $7.25 billion for the first time on record. With rising popularity in the Middle East, exports in June 2025 alone jumped nearly 68% year-on-year, extending the strong growth trend that began in the early 2020s.
I'm sitting in a used Korean car that is ready to be shipped overseas. In fact, thousands of cars like this leave this lot every day to welcome new owners around the world. Still runs perfectly.
Industry insiders claim that the vehicles made in Korea are well known for their affordability, reliability, and accessibility.
Korean used cars are exported to around 160 countries. Not only are they high in quality and equipped with many features, but they're also competitively priced. On top of that, Korea has a well-established parts supply system and after-sales services around the world.
Used car exports involve complex but streamlined processes, including vehicle collection, inspection, repairs, deregistration, and coordination with customs brokers and freight forwarders. Once loaded onto ships, vehicles begin their second life overseas. Despite the positive outlook, there are looming risks. Local exporters shared concern over rising shipping costs and tightening import regulations abroad, especially in light of the U.S. government's recent tariff actions that could impact the price of overseas car shipping.
Our biggest concern right now, especially with the hike in U.S. tariffs, is the spike in freight rates. A couple of months ago, the cost nearly tripled, and it's been fluctuating ever since. That's become one of the biggest challenges for dealers like us.
Supported by continued demand for used vehicles, coupled with government support to deal with regulatory challenges in global trade, South Korea's used vehicle exports are expected to grow steadily. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
In other news, while most of us are staying indoors to beat the heat, some are sprinting right into it. And they're not doing it alone. Our Park Kyo-bin has the story.
It's 7 p.m. on a humid summer evening, but the heat hasn't stopped these runners. People stretch, chat, and tie their shoelaces, getting ready for their weekly run.
I really feel like I've become healthier through running. Even when it's tough in the summer, I think of it as a double XP event, so I push myself even harder.
When I run with the crew, I get more energy from the people around me. I end up running further than I could on my own, and I enjoy it more too.
They're the Seoul Running Crew, a free community running program held at 3 locations across Seoul. Every Thursday evening, runners meet up and split into beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels.
Right now, I'm running with the crew members here at Seoul Yeouido Park, and even when the sun's nearly gone down, the heat is intense and so is the energy.
Led by professional coaches, including former national athletes, participants are guided safely based on their pace and fitness levels. Since this season kicked off in April, all 60 spots at each location have been fully booked every single week. To support this growing fitness trend, the city has even revamped its infrastructure. Take Yeouido Station right in the heart of Seoul's business district. It now features a runner station, a dedicated facility for joggers equipped with lockers and changing rooms, so office workers can head straight out for a run after work. The station also offers live weather updates, UV levels, and wind speed, so runners can check if conditions are safe to run. There are also checkup sessions for beginner runners, helping them find the right pace range and recommending routes that match their fitness level. Despite the sweltering heat, more and more people are lacing up their shoes and hitting the asphalt. For them, summer nights aren't just about beating the heat, they're about building community, pushing limits, and making the city their own. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News.
K-pop girl group BLACKPINK performed before a total audience of 100,000 fans over the weekend at LA SoFi Stadium, kicking off the U.S. portion of its ongoing Deadline World Tour. According to YG Entertainment on Monday, BLACKPINK sold out both the Saturday and Sunday shows, becoming the first girl group in the world to attract such a crowd at the venue. The group will continue their North American tour with upcoming stops, including Chicago, before heading to other continents. YG also said BLACKPINK's new digital single Jump has topped global streaming charts, including Spotify's daily top songs global as of Saturday. Two historic sites here on the Korean Peninsula have been listed as UNESCO World Heritage Sites over the weekend, one each from the two Koreas. A set of prehistoric rock carvings in South Korea and North Korea's Mount Kumgang. Lee Seung-jae reports.
During the 47th session of the UNESCO World Heritage Committee in Paris on Sunday, a new addition for both South Korea and North Korea was added to the list. First, North Korea's Mount Kumgang, a scenic mountain known for its beauty, was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Listed officially as Mount Kumgang, Diamond Mountain from the Sea, the inclusion comes as the International Union for Conservation of Nature, which serve as advisory bodies to the World Heritage Committee, recommended the inclusion in May. According to UNESCO's website, Mount Kumgang is a strikingly beautiful mountain with numerous peaks and curious rocks amounting to some 1,200 waterfalls and pools formed by crystal-like clear waters flowing from hundreds of gorges, as well as with the seascape stretched along the coastline. The mountain is North Korea's third World Cultural Heritage Site after the complex of Goguryeo tombs in 2004 and the historic monuments and sites in Kaesong in 2013. Meanwhile, a set of prehistoric rock carvings located in South Korea's Ulsan has also been added to UNESCO's World Heritage List. Petroglyphs along the Pangucheon stream were officially recognized for their significant cultural value in Paris. Located along the Pangucheon stream, a tributary of the Taewon River in Ulsan, some 360 kilometers southeast of Seoul. The petroglyphs are carved into vertical cliffs, depicting prehistoric hunting scenes and animals. According to the committee, the carvings are masterpieces created through the creativity of prehistoric people. And for South Korea, the inclusion of the prehistoric art spanning some 6,000 years was a long time coming.
The Korea Heritage Service will do its best to protect the value of the Pangucheon petroglyphs as a common heritage of mankind and to preserve and utilize them well.
With the latest edition, the country now has 17 entries on the UNESCO World Heritage List. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us in the studio is our sports editor, Paul Neat. Hello, Paul.
Hello there.
Why don't we start with EAFF E-1 football championships. The tournament will conclude this week, and I believe Korea's men's and women's could both win.
Yes, they could both win. Both are unbeaten thus far, and both have massive games coming up this week. The men's competition concludes on Tuesday with South Korea facing Japan at 7:24 in Yongin. Now, both teams are locked on 6 points after 2 wins, but South Korea must win because Japan have a better goal difference. A draw would not be enough. South Korea beat Hong Kong on Friday 2-0 thanks to first national team goals from Kang Sang-yoon and Lee Ho-jae. The Taeguk ladies, meanwhile, have to rely on results elsewhere to secure the title. After 2 straight draws, South Korea must beat Chinese Taipei on Wednesday at 8 p.m. in Suwon and score enough goals to better Japan's goal difference of +4. Korea's is currently 0. They also need Japan and China to play out a draw. On Sunday in Hwasong, South Korea came back from behind to draw late on with Japan thanks to Jong Da-bin's equaliser in the 86th minute.
Well, fingers crossed for both of the teams. Now, moving on to baseball now, there was a Korean derby in MLB.
There was indeed, yes. The San Francisco Giants faced the LA Dodgers. This meant that Lee Jong-hoo was up against Kim Hye-sung, 2 former teammates from the Kium Heroes. In Friday's game, both registered 3 hits in an 8-7 win for the Giants. Lee, batting at number 6 and playing centre field, went 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs, including a go-ahead 3-base hit in the 4th inning. Batting at number 8 and starting at second base, Kim also recorded 3 hits in 4 at-bats, scoring once and stealing 2 bases. On Saturday, Kim Hye-sung scored a key run to help the Dodgers earn a much-needed win, ending their worst losing streak of the season. He batted 1 for 4 with an RBI in the 2-1 victory. Both featured in Sunday's game, which ended 5-2 to the Dodgers.
Paul, let's rewind to last Friday. We had the KBO All-Star game last Friday. Who won? Tell us.
I can tell you it was Team Nanum. They beat Team Dream 8-6 at Daejeon Hanwha Life Ballpark. LG Twins catcher Park Dong-won was the standout player with 3 hits and 3 RBIs. He also hits a 2-run homer in the first inning, and with 27 out of 28 votes from the media, was named MVP. Team Nanum had players from the LG Twins, the Kia Tigers and the NC Dinos, while Team Dream had players from the Samsung Lions, the Doosan Bears, the KT Wiz, the SSG Landers and the Lotte Giants. The match was a sellout crowd with 16,850 fans in attendance. The KBO resumes its normal schedule this week.
All right, so finally to athletics, another win for Woo Sang-hyuk.
Yes, that's 7 in a row now on the high jump world stage. At the Stade Louis II in Monaco on Friday, who jumped 2.34 meters at a Diamond League event, his 2nd Diamond League win this year and 5th overall. Now, 2.34 meters is also the best anyone has done this year in an outdoor event. The win also means that he has booked his place at the World Championships in Tokyo this September.
Great stuff. As always, Paul, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
Rain will gradually fall around the whole country. It will rain more than 100 millimeters in eastern parts of Gangwon-do province by tomorrow. Up to 50 millimeters of rain is expected in the Seoul metropolitan area, Chungcheongnam-do province and the Jeollado provinces, and 5 to 40 millimeters in the Gyeongsang-do provinces. With rain clouds, the heat wave has cooled down nationwide. The daytime temperature in Seoul only topped out at 29 degrees Celsius and 31 degrees in Daegu. Temperatures will stay under 30 degrees even during the day across the country tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, Seoul, Chuncheon, Gwangju, and Daegu will start off at 22 degrees, Jeju at 24 degrees. Daily highs move up to 29 degrees in Seoul, Chuncheon, Gyeongju, Jeju, and Daegu, 28 degrees in Busan and Gwangju. This rain will stop tomorrow afternoon and come back again around the country on Wednesday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
저희가 매일매일 자동차를 타고 일상생활에서도 쉽게 사용을 하는데 그런 자동차에서 타이어는 계속해서 버려지고 있거든요. 전 세계적으로 10억 개 이상 버려지고 있는데 특히 소각 처리될 경우에는 대기오염 물질들이 여러 가지가 나오게 되고 매립됐을 때는 지하수나 토양오염 물질들이 많이 방출되게 됩니다. 저희는 그런 타이어들을 어떻게 잘 처리할지 좀 고민을 했었습니다. 타이어가 가지고 있는 접지력이나 내마모성이 좀 우수하다고 생각을 했고요. 저희는 타이어 하나로 신발을 3.5켤레 정도를 만들 수가 있어요. 그렇게 됐을 때 저희의 신발 한 켤레는 타이어에서 발생되는 탄소를 8.9kg 정도 저감할 수 있는 그런 효과가 있습니다. 이 일을 시작하기 전에는 타이어가 그렇게 많이 버려지는지도 몰랐고 그리고 버려진 타이어들이 환경 파괴적으로 처분되는 것도 사실은 잘은 몰랐어요. 점점 더 적체가 되고 있거든요, 타이어들이. 시간이 지나면 지날수록 더 큰 문제가 될 것 같다는 생각에 지금 일을 하고 있습니다. 타이어마다 모양이나 패턴이 굉장히 많이 다양한데 내가 가지고 있는 신발이 다른 신발들과 모양이 다를 수 있다는 점, 그런 점도 재미 요소로 좀 다가가고 있습니다. 저희도 그런 계기를 보다 많은 분들께 하나 더 제공해 주고자 매일매일 신는 신발을 만들겠다고 한 것도 있어요. 조금 더 주변을 살펴보면은 나 스스로도 조금 더 환경 보호에 참여할 수 있는 일이나 물건들이 더 있지 않을까, 그렇게 찾아보시면 어떨까 싶습니다. 나는 다시 달릴 수 있게 만드는 그리너입니다.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gen. Only 18 days remain until President Trump's sweeping tariffs hit Korean exports, and Seoul is running out of time. The Korean government has entered emergency mode, rushing to secure a broad framework deal with Washington before the August 1st deadline, with a phased negotiation strategy aimed at protecting national industries while fending off Trump's escalating demands. Trade Minister Yohan-gu warned that this is not Trump's first term, stressing that this is a time for choices and decisions aimed at finding a landing zone. Seoul is pushing a package deal that ties tariffs to investment, defense costs, LNG cooperation, and digital trade, while drawing red lines around sensitive issues like agricultural imports and wartime operational control. For a deeper discussion on this matter, we're joined by Pan Gil-ju, assistant professor at the Korean National Diplomatic Academy, with us. Welcome, Professor.
Hello, good to be here.
And also joining us is Andrew Millard, Assistant Professor of International Relations at Changwon National University. Good to see you, Professor.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Now, let's start with Professor Ban. So, with President Donald Trump ramping up pressure on South Korea by pushing for higher defense cost sharing on top of existing tariffs, Seoul has responded with a proposed package deal that links trade, investment, and security. What do you think? Why do you think the Korean government has shifted gears to suggest a package deal that merges economic and security issues, despite, initially it planned to do the opposite way?
The suggestion of a one package deal seems to show the United States that the Republic of Korea is more than willing to make a bilateral deal successful for both of them. In this sense, the South Korean government seems to believe that a proactive deal-making suggestion matters, particularly when confronting Trump. In more detail, what makes Seoul proactively suggest a package deal? First of all, the South Korean government is well aware that a top-down approach is a full-fledged formula under the second Trump administration. In particular, the top-down approach makes Trump himself play a leading role in deal-making. Similarly, since Trump seizes the initiative of deal-making, all items such as trade, investment, and security, as you pointed out earlier, are supposed to be on the table at the end of the day. In short, the South Korean government seems to believe that a one package deal is inevitable under this formula, and in doing so, it wants to proactively suggest this package deal in order to step up its leverage over the United States. Second, the South Korean government intends to send a signal that the ROK-US alliance remains cohesive and ironclad. Recently, the United States has been pressing the Indo-Pacific allies, particularly South Korea and Japan, to make a great deal with it. This intensified request could make the ROK-US alliance weaker without proactively addressing deal-making issues. If the ROK-US alliance is seen to be loosened, it could be bad for security on the Korean Peninsula because it could lead to North Korea's miscalculation. Pretty simply, I would say that a package approach has reflected Trump's preference, which is a top-down approach, and was intended to prevent the ROK-US alliance from being decoupled.
Right, so we took into consideration ties with Washington in making this package deal. Now, following up on this, Professor Millard, then what kind of specific negotiation cards do you anticipate the Korean government would bring to this table with this package deal approach?
So, firstly, I agree that South Korea should be approaching this with the package deal. Let's face it, right now, America is the more powerful country. South Korea really can't compete too much with America. So it has to follow this package deal. In terms of its negotiating cards, to be honest, South Korea has kind of already put these on the table in the past few weeks, laying out sort of what areas it can negotiate in. And I agree with Professor Ban that doing this package deal, it does make South Korea much more affable. It makes the US maybe want to work more with the Koreans, and this is a great way. In terms of specific areas where there could be room for negotiations. There's quite a few, to be honest, and there's quite a few specific ones that the Americans will be looking at. We've mentioned agriculture just in the previous news broadcast. Agriculture is definitely always one that is very, in the previous newscast was called painful, but it's one that I think does need to be opened up. So I know America is looking at rice, beef imports, genetically modified foods, so all of those different areas. In terms of digital, we're looking at online platforms in South Korea. We're looking at the use of precision Google Maps in Korea. That's, again, something that the US has brought up. And all of these things are quite negotiable. I think there's a lot of room for negotiation on these areas. Other areas could be semiconductors, automobiles. Now, automobiles, they did do some negotiations in Donald Trump's previous term. So how much room there is for more negotiation on automobiles, that remains to be seen. But I think sort of the big areas would be shipbuilding and the Alaska LNG pipeline. Those two seem to be areas that Donald Trump is very focused on, especially the LNG pipeline. This is something that it's going to require huge amounts of investment, and America simply cannot do it on its own. It's going to require a lot of investment from third countries. Korea, Japan, Taiwan have all suggested they may be involved in this, but that's really where South Korea, if they say, yes, we're going to commit to this pipeline, and then also that links in with shipbuilding because Donald Trump's been pushing for more LNG containers to be built by the South Koreans. So I think really those are the areas where we could see a bit more leverage from the South Koreans.
Right. So Professor Millard has just given us some areas that we could cooperate and benefit with the package deal. What about Professor Ban? How effective do you think this bundling of trade and security issues would be as a negotiation method for South Korea?
Well, we have noticed that negotiations with Trump do not end in one session based upon prior examples, including the U.S.-Japan negotiations. When U.S. President Trump had a summit with Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba on 7 February 2025, pundits said that Japan did a good job in the talks. However, Trump has continued to ask Japan for more negotiations even after this summit, as we can see in his request for an increase in defense costs. As of right now, Trump is very grumbling at Japan while asking Japan to buy American rice. So the South Korean government is fully aware that negotiations with Trump are a long-lasting process. With these insights in mind, the effective solution to deal with this type of negotiation formula is to prevent Washington from using the salami tactics. In this sense, Seoul seems to think that the approach of linking trade and security could be more effective than separate negotiations. Meanwhile, there are two important things that South Korea should be careful about under this linking approach. First of all, a trade-off between economy and security should not be made. South Korea should not allow the United States to weaken its commitment to security on the Korean Peninsula just in order to maximize its economic interests. Second, Seoul should match the exchange and make it reciprocal. To put it another way, South Korea needs to clearly prepare for what it will give to the United States and what it will have from it. No trade-off and the reciprocal outcome matter not only for South Korea's national interests, but also for the ROK-US alliance and Korean citizens' credibility towards the negotiation team.
Right, so avoiding trade-off and making it clear what both sides would benefit from this latest package deal would be very important. So Washington continues to, pressure South Korea with this tariff issue, and some are suggesting that the transfer of wartime operational control, also called the OPCON, should be raised as a bargaining chip in this negotiations. Professor Millard, why is OPCON issue coming into the spotlight right now? Given Trump's foreign policy posture, do you think this could give Korea leverage in this trade security dialogue?
Well, so when we talk about operational control, obviously right now it's being brought up again, but this is not an issue that has just suddenly come out of nowhere. Operational control, this is something that has been talked about in Korea and the US really for the past 40, 50 years. So, I mean, we're going back to the Korean War when operational control was first handed over to the United Nations. Then in the 1970s, it was handed over to the Combined Forces, which is controlled by the US Forces Korea. But then since the 80s, we've had No Tae-woo, Kim Young-sam. They've been discussing this with the Americans. We then moved operational control during peacetime to the Koreans in 1994. And since then, this has constantly been discussed between the Korean and US presidents of bringing back, of transferring the wartime operational control back to Korea. So even back with Roh Moo-hyun and George Bush, they decided on 2012 to bring this wartime OPCON back to Korea. But then there was the nuclear testing in North Korea and other issues that made it slightly unstable. And this basically delayed it. But this has, again, been an issue discussed with the sort of successive presidents ever since. And Lee Jae-myung, he's also been quite a vocal advocate of having this wartime OPCON being brought back to Korea. So this is not a new issue. This is not suddenly an issue that's come out of nowhere and taken everyone by surprise. Like I said, it is an ongoing one. But right now, in the past couple of weeks, Donald Trump has also been very critical of South Korea, including just the amount of resources, military activity that the US has over here in Korea. And so again, this issue has been brought up, but it potentially could be a very important issue in these negotiations.
Right, so it's not really surprising, it's not really new, and it's not really just whether OPCON should be on the table, but it's, how its timing should shift this balance of power in the talks. Now, staying with this OPCON, Professor Ban, National Security Office Chief Wi Sung-rak has stated that the OPCON transfer is a separate matter from tariff negotiations, drawing a clear line. What's the significance of Korea making that line and choosing not to use OPCON as a trade negotiation card?
Well, the OPCON transfer issue serves as the most critical security agenda in the sense that it determines whether the reorganized combined architecture between South Korea and the United States will continue to go without a hitch even after the launch of the new command post following the OPCON transfer. If the OPCON issue were on the table as a bargaining chip under the ROK-US negotiations, this complex issue could be taken lightly or economically, and by doing so, security could be weakened. The OPCON transfer is being made under the principle of a condition-based transfer, not a negotiation-based transfer. So the exclusion of the OPCON transfer from the tariff negotiation seems to prevent this concern from rising. Furthermore, the Trump administration could take advantage of the OPCON to allow American soldiers stationed in South Korea to be dispatched beyond the Korean peninsula more easily. In short, strategic flexibility could be facilitated without a policy process for the OPCON transfer. If that happens, security on the Korean peninsula could be seriously vulnerable. In short, the South Korean government appears to exclude this OPCON issue to prevent these unintended risks from coming unintentionally.
Right, so they did it deliberately to reduce such kind of risks. Now let's look at the bigger picture of this. America's military strategy is shifting towards countering China, as we all know, and President Trump reportedly wants U.S. forces Korea to play a more flexible regional role lately. So if OPCON is returned to Korea, Professor Miller, could that directly lead to U.S. troop reductions or redeployment from the peninsula?
I think very possibly it could do. So as Professor Ban just mentioned, if we do transfer operational control back to Korea, this frees up some of those US forces in Korea so they could be deployed elsewhere in the region or elsewhere in the world. But I think it's kind of crucial that we remember exactly what OPCON means. So operational control, the reason why this was transferred from Korea to the UN and then back to the combined forces was because it was considered that South Korea at those times, and still now, did not have the capabilities and the capacity to defend itself. Now, during peacetime, it's now considered to be strong enough, so those peacetime OPCONs were transferred. But if they decide that wartime OPCON should be transferred back to Korea, what they're effectively saying is South Korea is now strong enough, it has the capabilities, it has the capacity to defend itself. And therefore, from the US perspective, if you look at it from Donald Trump's perspective, he's going to say, well, if we've decided that South Korea has those capabilities and capacities, why do we need to keep 28,500 troops in Korea, especially when they're not paying us what we think they should be paying us? So based on this, I think if OPCON is transferred back, the American administration, especially under Donald Trump, will seriously look at reducing some of those forces in South Korea.
Right, so any significant changes in troop posture would definitely lead to some regional significant moves. Now, meanwhile, hopes are actually high that the upcoming U.S.-Korea summit could help break the deadlock in this tariff negotiations. But with the tariff exemption deadline set for August 1st, which is just a few days away, time is running short. Professor Bon, what do you see as the key factors for arranging an early summit?
Well, answers lie in finding out what items South Korea can exercise its leverage over the United States. As you are well aware, Trump focuses only on transactions and bargaining. In this sense, the United States could be more active in convening the summit if it finds out that South Korea has many cards, which could also be profitable to the United States. In this sense, South Korea needs to pay more attention to items that Trump said in his own voice. In this sense, I feel the same way with Professor Miller. He clearly mentioned at least three things: South Korea's world-class shipbuilding capability, South Korea's role to play in investing the Alaska LNG development project, and then trade imbalance. For example, South Korea could suggest that it will prioritize American ships for their maintenance and repair to contribute to American Navy's readiness in the Indo-Pacific. So if South Korea raises these three issues to the negotiation table and suggests the specific role South Korea can play to help the United States achieve its mega goals, the motivation to convene the summit could be stepped up. What matters more is that these three items serve as optimal assets for South Korea to increase its leverage over the United States, contributing to better negotiation outcomes. All in all, I think that South Korea could take advantage of these items to at least postpone the exemption deadline and expedite the upcoming ROK-US summit.
Right, so we'll have to see how talks would unfold in the coming days or weeks. Now, to our final question before we wrap up our discussion. So all eyes are on this talks. This moment could prove a major test of South Korean President Lee Jae-myung's pragmatic diplomacy centered on national interests. Professor Millard, in your view, what's the most critical element in navigating this negotiation landscape moving forward?
So you're right. You just mentioned there that Lee Jae-myung, he's been very focused, and we keep hearing this term, pragmatic diplomacy. And we've really known from the start that Lee Jae-myung, he wants to maintain a good relationship with the US and Japan and Europe, but also at the same time with Russia, which even for quite a few years now, he's been sort of more pro-Russia. And China as well. So he does have to sort of balance these things quite well. In terms of this specific negotiation with the US, this really is a big test. If he can maintain strength, and he's going to have to compromise. I think everyone knows that. South Korea is going to have to compromise in certain areas and give in to America a little bit. However, I think the key will be patience. And what I mean by that is, as Professor Ban mentioned earlier, the Americans, they keep changing their deadlines. They're a little bit unpredictable. What South Korea needs to do now is they need to go to the negotiation table with this package deal, say, we are willing to compromise and negotiate in this area, in this area, in this area. Show America, show the Trump administration that they are committed to maintaining a very positive relationship with the US. It doesn't mean that they have to have an agreement by the 1st of August. So the original trade tariffs introduced by Trump was supposed to come into effect by 9th of July. As we know, that date has come and gone and nothing's happened. The deadline's been pushed back. So if the South Koreans negotiators, if they can show America this is what we're working on, if they can make progress, I don't think that the Americans will demand that there has to be something in place by the 1st of August. They just want to see that strong commitment. So Lee Jae-myung's group, he needs to stay sort of committed and stay strong and patient. And really, I think there needs to be a longer negotiation process for a much better deal, which is win-win all around.
Right. So indeed, it's very important for South Korea to, express willingness to make a compromise with Washington moving forward. It's definitely a pivotal moment, and this would definitely define Korea's strategic posture for years to come. So we will keep close tabs on the latest developments. But as for now, we'll have to wrap up our discussion at this point. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights tonight, Professor Ban.
Thanks for having me.
And Professor Millard, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.
Arirang TV is conducting an overseas TV viewer survey to provide you with a better global broadcast service. Share your valuable feedback on the Arirang TV